got to know Julio Lugon in Bonn as the winner of the Smutopia Sound Artist Prize in, I'm not sure, 2013?
19.
18,
but
it's
the
some
prize
years
was-
ago, but
yeah.
still present. And welcome to Cologne, where you're now based and working. It's the atelier in the Südstadt.
Yeah, temporary, but
Yeah. Doing also installation works we thought to present within this ChezON, but now it's coming on another date.
Yeah.
We'll hear back from you, hopefully.
Yeah, I will
And
talk a little bit about it
yeah.
later.
Perfect. And now, feel free. It's your stage, and we are looking forward to hear more about your works.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you all for coming around. So I used to live here around the corner, so now I'm living south, so it's good to come back around the neighborhood. It's good. And okay. So I think let's start now. Hello, good evening. I'm gonna read a little bit and then improvise also, so it's a bit of a mashup between things. First of all, I would like to apologize in advance for the autobiographical self-hype that I will present to you next with the help of my PowerPoint. Even more so, the state of our world is now, the state of affairs. Massacres, ruthless exploitation, violations of rights, extinction of entire ecosystems everywhere. And we're sitting here to hear about the life of just but one human being. The artistic development of a privileged person with access to the necessary time to question knowledge production systems, to follow a line of self-criticism and execute projects that seem to have very little to vital or urgent agency whatsoever. But we are also here to do the exercise of showing that perhaps, quite on the contrary, these spaces like ON or ChezON are very necessary in our world indeed. I would like to begin by saying that this presentation is divided into 4 parts, and then continue, if you allow me, with a discussion of spontaneous questions and answers. The first part is a little bit of a background, autobiographical background, and it's important for me here because it tells a little bit of my my first encounters with sound and art in general. The second is coming into the world of academia, fine arts, painting, and always having music as something not really linked with art itself, or painting in this case, but it was kind of a dualism that was to be put down. Then the third one is a sonic turn, post-humanism and the communion with popular culture. A turn, rebirth, and I will talk a little bit about shamanism without talking about shamanism. And the fourth and the last one of the parts is another turn, and it's kind of nowadays in my artistic practice, which I like to call the re-enchanted with magic, and how I learned to cope with the fact that I want to talk about shamanism, talking about shamanism, and all-encompassing sonic art and experimental sound art. So the first part. Almost every year from the time I was 4 years old until 12 or 14, I spent time in the Amazon rainforest in Peru, visiting relatives who lived there. My godmother with her family, cousins around my age, were living there in a place called Yarinacocha, a lake in the Peruvian city of Pucallpa. They moved from the capital, Lima, since around 5 years at that time. The rest of my family, me, were living in Lima, a great city with colorful people. It was there, in Yarinacocha, in Pucallpa, as far as I can understand today, that I was nourished by the many phenomena that I use today in my artistic practice. The sounds of the jungle, the contrast in temperature, the colors of the sky, the vegetation, the animals, the almost impossible insects, the olfactory impressions deep with exquisite fragrances and repugnant odors. Everything mixes in the jungle, everything vibrates and is alive. I traveled a lot through Peru all my life, and although the dry deserts of the coast, living inside the sea the whole summer, at the beach, the prolific valleys in the foothills of the Andes, the heights of the mountains and the mystique of places like Cusco, my mother's hometown, they also nourished me a lot in regards of my creative imagination, but I have to say that the jungle mystery was always a special impulse in terms of ways of seeing the world, or experiencing the world, listening the world, of the past, present, and future. This is where we can encounter the arts of the Vivo Conivo community, great ayahuasca healers and Icaro singers. But the images and sounds of pollution, massacres of indigenous peoples, uncontrolled logging, fatal mining, which can be seen since many years today in the lungs of the world, the jungles and rainforests, is a terrible shame. Inside the jungle is not easy. Everything around you can be potential risk. There is no soundtrack of pretty melodies, but there is access to other dimensions of reality. Going forward, a little bit older and back in Lima, I started constructing things. My dad had a workshop with all kind of tools and discarded materials for the construction around the house. My mother had always a sewing machine and plenty different fabrics and accessories to create many things like traveling backpacks, costumes, or repairing clothing. Through time, I was in those areas of creativity and DIY spirit and spent long hours manufacturing objects. I would carve wood to produce swords or rearrange black t-shirts to become a ninja. Later I would be constructing little sculptures from discarded material. At the time, the stereo system at home had a microphone and a recording tape machine. I collected various cassettes from that time, and I have them still today. The creation of a fictional radio station and abstract music, Radio Jurassic Park. At 14 years old, I overdubbed cassette recordings with various instruments to create an instrumental track called Tres Estatuas Amarillas. In English, it's 13 yellow sculptures. And we're listening to this right now. The story of this song is that at school they had I think in the third year of high school, they had a music competition. And I applied and I presented this, and the music teacher told me, you need some lyrics because this is instrumental. You know, we're like kind of challenging people to write the lyrics. And so it wasn't really the environment to, consume this type of experiments. This is recorded with cassette, with a microphone, and I overdubbed first with the acoustic guitar, the bass, then with the Casio tone, the drums and the pianos. So this layer created this lo-fi, amazing, for me, roughness to the sound, and still today became kind of like the impulse to making music. And I never won this competition, of course. It was another like a ballad or something, like a romantic song.
With lyrics.
With lyrics, for sure. A love song. But I was still happy to have this, and found this some years ago, and kind of connect with this first produced song. No? But they told me also that if I win, I have to present it live, so I need to record it again with live musicians. So I did that, and this is the song. I called some friends from school that they play the drums and the keyboards, and we reenact this song that I was that I had. I was still gonna play it on the background. So then I started uni, fine arts. You had to learn how to mix oil painting, colors, and copy images from reality in the canvas. The chiaroscuro, a word from the Italian chiaroscuro, a painting technique that consists of the use of strong contrast between volumes, some illuminated and others shadowed, to highlight some elements more effectively. I used to produce very fast works at the time, paintings in a style called bad painting, learning from my heroes like Jean-Michel Basquiat or other artists from the art brut scene like Jean Dubuffet. I seem to not have time to spend in understanding how Paul Cézanne or Johannes Vermeer organized their color palette. Many years later, though, while discovering about phenomenology and philosophies of perception, I started to think that it wasn't that bad of an idea. So from time to time I go back and paint a chiaroscuro painting. Here I have a painting from that time, the first years at school. The bad painting that was produced, like very, very quick, and I produce a lot of those paintings, abstract paintings. And this in the center is something that I did a couple of years ago or last year, because I think that from time to time I like to go back to this academic painting in a way of perceiving the world in a very specific way. But at some point I began to think that this painting project wasn't going nowhere. I mean, this type of abstract painting. I've been doing music at the side all the time, but separating worlds always. Art, painting, and music. I was jamming with my friends, doing music alone, and painting. It was always separated, and I think it was kind of like choose one. I had a bad or an ill advice from the director of school, and he told me you have to choose between music or painting, and it was wrong, no? So I tend to always consider rebel music at the same time encountering abstraction and memory erosion. The artist's workshop transforming into a cathartic center, and the experimental music production and DJ sets at the side, colliding and saving you every second of it. Even more with the abstract painting being always so very autobiographical that can kill you. Something had to change. In fact, in this stop motion video that I made in 2012, it shows the exact moment that a painter character sitting on the sofa gets up and finds a new world, free of self-destruction and memory erosion, and quite the opposite, a real life seeker outside next to the vegetation. The diversification in my interdisciplinary work began to bear fruit, and I began to concentrate on digital illustration, painting with the computer, writing many texts such as poems or small metaphysical essays, science fiction stories, producing electronic music in a lo-fi way and an intuitive spirit. On the right, a cover of a record of mine portraying two grandmas. The song we are listening, or we will listen now, this song is the first track of this compilation, the very best of Piralemu. Piralemu is kind of like my pseudonym that I use to produce music, which is a spoonerism of my hometown, Lima, Peru. And this song is called Jardín enfrente de mi casa, the garden in front of my house. Machines with oscillators and sequencers. I learned to solder circuits, rearranging old toys that make sound, or salvaging electronic components from electro machines found in the street. All this while learning the basic of electronics and design, a self-taught adventure. With these techniques, one can have very affordable ways to manipulate pure sound, frequencies in the purest form, real waves generated by one-of-a-kind machines. Now I'm gonna show you a little excerpt of how this machine sounded like. Sound studying research, I found a common language between ancient ways of talking about sound with contemporary discussion of something called speculative realism. Speculative realism, a term some use to describe a philosophical movement starting around 2007, 2009, something like a phenomenological realism or alien phenomenology that one can bring out of all these In speculative realism, we can find a branch that speaks of the flat ontology of object, tribal O, or object-oriented ontology, where objects, things, entities, beings, everything is in constant vibration. And even more, all these human subjectivities and beyond the human perception could be in constant relationship with each other, in a real, unified, and open world. The fresh readings on panpsychism and on Western takes of indigenous animism opened a way of talking about shamanism without being literal. I could argue that this was a good tactic against being read as something exotic, coming from Peruvian background, showing work in Europe. And all this led me grant my ideas to define the function of the arts to be seen as an impulse toward the animation of objects, with a system of never-ending translations of interrealities. The artist as some kind of animator of objects, animator of entities, but not a shaman. Let objects do something, activate ideas into things that do things, things that act, things that have agency, be it electronic machines, raw materials such as wood or metal, temperature, oxygen, living beings, acrylic paint, nails, Arduino microcontrollers, electromagnetic relay systems, plants on my balcony, plants that produce tomatoes and potatoes, moche beans that grow very quickly. This work is called Aristoteles Django. These are pictures of the installation. It was a sound installation that I presented from a master's in sound studies at the UDK. And technically, these are an 8-channel system where I paired ventilators, electric fans, and lights. So you had 2 of these in 8 channels. So you had 8 ventilators with each of one a different lamp. They were activated by the plants. I searched for a machine that could read the electroresistance of plants and translate those into MIDI notes, whereas I translate again the MIDI notes into binary code saying on and off. So the plants, we can discuss this, but the plants were activating, deactivating the ventilators and the fans. All this to have this kind of soundscape from a Django, a fictional Django in the past. So my argument here was to predict a past. Aristoteles Django, the Django in the Amazon in Aristotle's time, was the knowledge production of philosophies at that time in the civilization living in the Amazon. Nowadays we can have for a fact that there were like big civilizations there that some years ago we didn't know. So this question of predicting the past, as in how many things are we going to encounter in the future to know a little bit more of the past, what happened in opposition to this creation of Western culture as the old Greeks, philosophers in Aristotle's Plato. So the base of Western culture. So this exercise, this philosophical exercise of thinking about what could have happened if we didn't build civilization from the Greek, but from other knowledge production systems, as the ones we haven't encountered yet, but were in the Amazon at that time, 300 years before Christ or so. And it was a connection with plants because I already had like a really great relationship with plants, and I tried to bring them to the party, but then it was something that I needed the plants to do something, not just being there for the sake of it or just for aesthetic purposes. So again, I can argue that they learned that they were activating the installation, and I could see that by the audience in visiting the installation, and the plant was responding to that. They were hectic at times, and sometimes were like really quiet. And they could feel when people were there, and when you touch them and so on. So, yeah. Now, slime molds. After working with plants, reading Stephen Shapiro's This Cognition is a great book on the many ways of perception beyond human. And they were speaking about slime molds, this organism that can't really be characterized in the animal world or the vegetal world or the fungi. They are in the protista department, which is a box where the scientists put all the living things that they are not in these other reigns, kingdoms. And I cultivate some, and this was in 2019, like Vike was saying. This is a project that I produced for Bonn Herren. Aristotle Django won the competition, sound art competition in Bonn, and so I had the opportunity to create a new work. And at the same time I was interested in slime molds, so I studied them, cultivated them at home, and yeah. Moreover, was a thing of carefully speaking about this organism, because I didn't know anything about it. With elephant meditation, which is this work that at the end I entitled this in Bonn, I had the budget to make something new from scratch and big. For my part, I set the goal that this time I wanted to do something super clean, without too much recycled material, as in my previous works, something new. So I even grew slime molds. I don't know if you know what slime molds are. I think some of you already know. The truth is I don't know what they are, really. The only thing I know is that you can't tell them what to do. They have a will, and they are much, much older than us. Now some quotes from the internet. Until now, the oldest unambiguous slime molds, sporocarps, were found in Baltic amber deposited in the Eocene around 14 million years ago. So these are prehistorical entities or beings, organisms. More than 900 species of slime mold occur globally. Well, they are feeding on microorganisms in dead plant material, so you can find them in the forest here, all over the world actually. Sorry. And they contribute to the decomposition of dead vegetation and feed on bacteria and fungi. For these reasons, slime molds are usually found in soil, lawns, and on the forest floor, commonly on deciduous logs. At some point, I realized that speaking autobiographically was more difficult for me when being commented or criticized by the audience. So I now understand that I was looking for an artistic process in which one can only worry about technological and conceptual rigors, with the possibility of starting lofty discussions about the human condition and the reality of things in a way. The picture there is, I will show the web page, yeah, here. So this is the presentation in Bonn. This was in the second floor. I had a laboratory of an abandoned, yeah, it was an abandoned lab 100 years from now in this science fictional narrative, where somebody found this laboratory and found this organism living already in this feedback loop. There was an inflatable there was deflating in a never-ending process of feedback loop. And then on the second floor you could hear the pickups from these sounds of deflation and inflation, and in this, let me show you a picture of the lab. So you will have these resonators in metal sheets where you could hear whatever was happening. And then in Berlin I was invited to present it again, so this is a second version of Elephant Meditations. And yeah, just quickly browsing through the pictures. So then coming back to the presentation, well, yeah, I was talking about painting before. It was too autobiographical. So in a way, there was a turning point that I started to talk about, not to talk about me, talk about the work itself. But then again, today I'm back at it and making this purely autobiographical presentation at ChezON. So the only thing I have left to say about all the polar opposites is why not both? Why not autobiographical and universal? Why not realism and idealism, or materialism and phenomenology, side by side at the same time? And I'm gonna. This was explained by an internet meme, a video of an advertisement in the US of tacos. It was a brand called Old Pueblo or something like that. And in the commercial, in this advertisement, they were like a family fighting, and they couldn't decide if they're gonna use soft tortillas or hard shell tacos. And there was a big fight in the family, and all of a sudden one of the child was saying, why not both? Why can't we have both? And she was lifted in arms, and they were happy, and they, having a party afterwards. And I think this meme, this little girl saying, why not both, can be again used as a picture in pop culture to really explain deep philosophical discussions. Whereas the opposite, once again, to turn down these dualisms. So now we're coming to a project that I draw from Aristoteles Django. So where Aristoteles Django was an installation piece, this is more a sound performance work. I began to present a sound performance with plants. In artistic residencies, I recorded sounds of nature and used this so that the plants compose works of sound art with this material. In Finland, this picture here, I was with my partner on an art residency, and they had a lake, so we developed this construction of a sound laboratory to gather sounds of the environment, and also underwater with self-made hydrophones. So these sounds, then I used to record this, to make this record that it was commissioned by art group from Lima, and now they're in Madrid, called Enhorabuena. And it was a record conceived with the sounds recorded from this residency and other synthesizer and so on. So this is just to kind of give you the idea of what I've been doing in the last years. The performances, and last week I had the latest show of this project, which I have here, it was for a group show from a collective here based in Cologne called Performance Garden, and it was the Bowie here in South Cologne. They had the theme of endings as new beginnings. So the show group was encompassed with this theme. And at this time, I kind of versioned my work into presenting a homage to my recently passed grandmother. And it was a great experience because I really let the plants kind of behave themselves, how they want. It was really like a post-apocalyptic sound wall. And it ended up in a really emotional, for me at least, when I used the recording voice of my grandma at the end of the presentation, and it was like a really great way to bring her to the earth once again, but via this sound performance with plants. Talk about a little note before passing by to the last part of it. And I would like to bring our attention to the world of deadlines, submitting application to contests, calls from institute, state, museums, art centers, and artist-led spaces. As an artist, one grows a shell and begins to send a more manufactured product, especially for each call. These two projects here are from two sides of the coin. The upper one is from offering an open call for artists to send their works and to kind of curate. This is a record, some compilation from artists, sound artists and experimental musicians, which at the end, it was 85% female artists and non-male artists, and the one on the one below is a work that I sent to an application, and I was working on it for a year because the open call was in COVID time. Use this glass box as a gallery, so you could present whatever you want. But for me, it was really, when this idea came, was to have this solar-powered disco ball slowly coming to Earth to save us from diseases with a little dance. I have a video of this project, and I think I am showing you this to kind of paint this idea of how you sometimes have an idea for yourself, but then when there's a limitation from an open call, you kind of have to work with this limitation and be free again. So in this case, it was I never went there, so I don't know the piece itself. I send all the material, and it's also another way of showing your work. It's the art can be self-containing and independent. So everything leads to the time and space that we encounter as today, the now and here and now. My latest projects and research operations from this year have all had to do with similar items. Things like balance, equilibrium, are concepts that I used as a general framework on sonic space. Applying a strict modus operandi, I systematically visited my studio lab with a list of things to do. In this working space, things develop in a very natural way. Concentrated work married with regular visit to nearby parks and forests, meditating extensively on the sounds and vibrations encountered, the ever-vibrating images of our nature. Some things going on serious psychedelic expeditions of the mind to cure our soul from anxious pollution. There is not enough time, and we have to take advantage of it to make it worth it. I have to explain here a little bit this idea of talking about shamanism. I mean, with the fact that I want to talk about shamanism, talking about shamanism, because there's another turning point where I don't care anymore to kind of camouflage this idea of the exotic or this esoteric. And so this year, when I was talking about open calls and application, this year I kind of stopped doing that and concentrating my own work. So it came to me that it was more sensible to not hide this idea of animism, panpsychism, and so on, and the sonic knowledge production from non-Western areas of the world. So I think in this piece, which is called Solenoid and Glass, or Vidrio y Solenoide, I came back to the recycled material, low budget but big productions. And I'm going to show you a little bit of this performance. I mean, it was a sound sculpture that you can activate via sound performance. And in this sense, I'm showing you this because I finally encountered these objects that I created, and to activate them, I had to have this idea of a shamanic happening, whereas the machines were like these non-human beings also alive, and I was kind of the director in this mess, but the end result was again this soundscape of or orchestra of objects. still don't know how to talk about this work yet. It's a new work, but I'm showing you this in a sense to kind of make sense of this introduction into a ways of now kind of empower this idea of being the shaman, you know, like a pseudo shaman, because I'm not shaman at all, but kind of manipulating the energies and the non-human aspects of life in order to gain more knowledge or gain different kind of feelings and so on. Let's go back here. So back to base. Reunion with my body, with that feeling of why art is being made. Another twist, another way of listening. There is no human collaboration with non-humans. It is an approach that goes another way. Not a collaboration, but a real relationship. Social elements at work, recycling materials, building little by little, without getting crazy impatient. Branches balancing and turning around. A project still in development, which is what I want us to install in the Feuerwache Park, temporarily, in the south of Cologne. And this speaks of the return to green areas, and once again of the equilibrium and balance. This main concept that I've been playing around with this year. The air and the natural movement of things in the world. This is a picture, some picture of an area in the park where I wanted to install. This is a Photoshop. I put these works that I have. They are 5-meter branches on a base, and they go around circular, and they are also balancing. And I just want to install them in the park and see what happens, document the experience, and have it as a work, because just like a symbol and a metaphor of what the hell is going on. I don't know yet what's going to come around, but that's also something that I like to do always with my work, to let the work to bring something back to me, like to learn in the audience, and to kind of bring back things, to use the artwork as a non-human being also develops, and yeah, brings you many different ways of sonic thinking. So we're about to end this, and I would just want to use these last two slides to kind of materialize dreams that I've been having lately. So for my future projects, I'm designing works for Peru and Latin America. Next year I will be spending some time there. So this is my work to put in, to jump around in between different dimensions. Cologne in Peru, new materials, new machines, for me at least. We'll go back to the jungle, to the Andes, to the sea, making an art laboratory in Pucallpa, an interdisciplinary platform, or an art exhibition with fireworks in the desert, floating sculpture in the Pacific Ocean, interdisciplinary art teaching for children. Things never end without first something or someone calling their name for the last time. Thank you very much for being there.